me. So let me shift from the personal and focus now more on the professional. So, you know, they say it's lonely at the top, right? But by the way, that doesn't apply to just CEOs of Fortune 500s. I mean, if you're an organization of one, it's lonely at the top, man. If you're an entrepreneur, it's lonely. As I was kind of thinking about this, I found this article that in the New York Times with Charles Schultz, funny, with what's his first name? Schultz, the CEO, Howard Schultz, CEO of Starbucks. So he said, very few people, whether you've been in that job before or not, get into the seat and believe today that they are qualified to be the CEO. They're not going to tell you that, but it's true. So everyone you meet has a level of insecurity. The level of insecurity you have is a strength, not a weakness. The question is, how are you going to use it? For whatever reason, people believe that when they get to the spot, they have to know everything. They've got to be in total control, and they can never show weakness. I would say one of my underlying strengths of a great leader and a great CEO, not all the time, but when appropriate, is to demonstrate vulnerability, because that will bring people closer to you and show people the human side of you. Now, in order to demonstrate vulnerability, you have to make sure that people around you, you have people around you who will never use it against you because you can trust them and they trust you. So the ability behind closed doors to have open and honest conversation with your team about the concerns you have, the fears you have, and the opportunities is the balance that someone needs to succeed. So I want to share with you an inevitable cycle that has really defined my startup process and that of many other people I know. So let's start out with an idea. For example, and I'm just going to pull this out of the air. Let's say you want to start a prefabricated housing company. And let's say this is so out there. Let's say it's 2006 that you're thinking about this. And so you start doing some research, and suddenly you discover that Dwell magazine actually had a competition to do prefabricated. So sorry, I missed a part. You get really excited about this idea. You're like, you're going to make great design accessible by using prefabrication, offsite production, to build your homes more efficiently. So you start getting into this, you're totally psyched, and then you discover Dwell magazine had a competition to do this. And you're like, I'm fucked. I mean, there are all these guys already doing this. So, if we were to chart, time, confidence, new idea, it's gonna be unbelievable, next Windows for homes, Dwell's done it, oh, okay, bad news. You suddenly feel insecure, like, this is terrible, and maybe you've already started to get some people excited about this. But then you look into it and you realize, well, actually, they're not doing sustainable, and actually not doing development, and in fact, that's a key part of this business. So you start to get psyched again. Then the real estate market crashes. I'm making this shit up. And then you get insecure again. And this is this cycle of getting excited and then finding out some stuff and getting depressed and feeling fear and uncertainty and doubt, FUD as we call it, like that's inevitable. But it's actually that process that gets you smarter about your business. And sometimes it will keep you on the path. You'll look into it more and realize, people aren't doing sustainable design. They're not doing development. And sometimes you'll have to make a big change. And sometimes that big change is famously successful, like what happened with Groupon. Groupon was not the first business. That wasn't their original concept. They were doing something very different. Kind of fell into Groupon because the first thing wasn't working. And there are lots of examples of that. Google's original business model didn't really work. They took a business model from Idea Lab, a company that I was part of the founding team of charging for searches, which they initially scorned, literally, in press. They were like, terrible idea, never worked. So sometimes the process of questioning what it is that you're doing inevitably leads to greater awarenesses to either confirm that you're on the right path or to tweak it, sometimes in radical ways. So it is, and then there's another cycle, which is in addition to the insecurity about the business, you may have some personal demons that you have to deal with. Do I really have the capability to do this? I don't think I can sell so well. I got to raise money. Can I do that? I got to put together a team. I don't know how to hire. So there will be, inevitably, insecurity about your business idea. There will be, inevitably, insecurity about whether you or your team have the ability to execute. But let me be clear on this. While it's always there, the form will always change. It can and will change. As you deal with problems, as you grow your business, and I hope it grows, but sometimes it won't. That's part of the process too. There will be new challenges. And again, just as I mentioned earlier, the process of learning to overcome that stuff, like that is your boot camp for being a CEO. That's what gives you the skills and abilities, perspective, to be able to deal with the professional slings and arrows. So I thought I'd just share a few things of where this has kind of come to pass on me, and then give you some pointers, and then hopefully other people will share it, our little Insecurity Anonymous. So my first professional BMOI was in college. So I'd gotten together with some folks. We were going to develop, and boring story, but we were going to develop medical and dental office management software for the newly released Macintosh. And basically, we were going to do that because the guy whose dad was willing to fund us to do that was a doctor, and he said, I need a computer. But there were 5 of us, and I was the business guy, and the other guys were programmers. And as I was kind of talking to doctors and dentists, I mean, they weren't doing patient scheduling and patient recall and electronic records and all this stuff, which they're not even doing now. This was the 80s. Sad to say they're not doing now. But they were basically using the computer to design forms, paper forms, and then they print them out and use it. And I was like, why don't we just do a forms design program and then a forms management program? And we had been working for about a year on this thing, and 2 of us had taken time off from school. And I mean, it was kind of a big deal for 4 people, to drop out of school, to do this. And I got into big arguments with the guy who was CEO. He was CEO by virtue of the fact that his dad put in the money. I mean, like painful, extended arguments over a 6-month period. And finally won. Like, he's like, all right, we're going to we'll do a demo of this, and we'll take it to Macworld, and we'll see how it goes, and then hopefully sell it. And they get money to do the medical and dental office management. And I remember one night, as I was thinking about this, harkens back to being 14-year-old, if you know what I mean. I realized I suddenly had this awareness. I'm like, man, like 4 people other than me have they're changed what they were doing a lot, and like I could be wrong. Like this might not work, shit. And it was the first time I had an awareness that stuff I was doing was going to dramatically impact others. And I felt very insecure. And God bless my partner, who I called immediately. I'm like, dude, could be wrong about this whole forms thing. I don't know. I'm thinking about it. And he's like, no, dude. I think it's okay. I think it's okay. And ultimately we brought it to Macworld. A lot of companies wanted to acquire us. We ended up selling the products in the company to Apple Computer Software subsidiary. We did a stupid deal. So we made some money and paid for college, but not nearly as much as we could have made. But that was my first experience of being able to overcome what was really a big insecurity. I could be wrong about this space. And for those of you doing new things, you got to tame that demon, because if you're lucky, it'll come up. If you're not lucky, it won't come up. And maybe you're lucky and you'll get lucky, but more likely than not, you'll be too cocky and you'll miss a lot of stuff, and you won't get the market right or the product right, and you'll fail. And if I'm trying to give you fear about not being insecure, good. I don't mean it in a debilitating way, and I'll get to that in a second. I just mean enough to question what you're doing and why. And so another example, I was asked after I had brought a CEO into the last company that I'd started, that Brett worked at, and Jill, I was going to take some time off and then get into real estate. And a guy I'd worked into college was putting together a program with President Clinton to launch what became the largest AIDS treatment program in the world. And he wanted a business guy to run the planning of the first country in which they launched in Africa. And he asked me to do it because he felt like I knew how to do business plans. Now, I had no background in AIDS. I had no background in healthcare and resource-poor settings. I'd never been to Africa. And I was scared shitless about this. But there were some other good people involved. And also, I got a lot of pressure from him, frankly, to do. And it was supposed to be, year volunteer, but I was turned into a year-and-a-half full-time thing. And just going to Mozambique was, half of that year. Every month I was going to Mozambique. And the thing that I kind of did, which was the only really smart thing I did, is I said, I don't know really anything about this, and I'm losing sleep about it. So I'm just going to make sure we have people who know what they're doing, and my role will be to clear obstacles. That's all I'm going to do. I will just make sure we're clear on what we need to do, and I will clear obstacles, and I will literally ask them that, what's keeping you from doing what you need to do for this plan? And it came together. The plan came together. We raised a couple $100 million. The program's underway. We got there 2003. There were 1,000 people in treatment. Now there's over 100,000 people in treatment, and it's spread all over the world, this program, the Clinton HIV/AIDS Initiative. I knew enough by then to know that while I felt really uncomfortable, if I had the right team, if I just kind of kept them on focus, we'll be able to deal with this, hopefully. Although at times I was like, this is going to be a disaster, like a really bad disaster. I mean, it already was a big disaster, but our focus on this. And so I'm sharing these only to say that, to admit the fear, uncertainty, and doubt that comes. But again, if you've been through the cycle, as you go through the cycle, you'll know it's always there, and you make it a friend.